the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Telling you guys a bit of a kind of a pitching video on how to pitch the Camp Bolide 400 Tipi tent. So it's quite a sort of inexpensive, basic Tipi tent, perfect sort of weekend camping, or even sort of put in the garden like a pup tent kind of style. But yeah, we'll go through the kind of pitching process of it. Now, for me, I think actually one thing I would say is actually in terms of a tent, what you get for, what you pay for what you get, is very, very good quality. And you've still got kind of a good amount of specification. Admittedly, kind of it is in terms of a single skin tent, which does have kind of its kind of own drawbacks in many ways. What we'll do first is kind of just unravel it, and then we want to peg it down. So what we'll start to do is just kind of get it into position in many ways. If it's a windy day like today, what I'd probably recommend doing is kind of pegging it down initially first, and that way you can kind of make sure that even when the wind blows, it's quite aptly secured. So for this, I would start with the main kind of four corners of the actual tent itself, and then what you can do is almost create that sort of kind of box. It means you can get that ground sheet looking really nice and taut, and then do kind of the sort of sprung out corners from there in many ways. So again, we just want to make sure we've got a dead square to it all, get that ground sheet nice and taut, like we said. And kind of once we've done the kind of four corners, we can then do kind of, I'll call it the wings. But like I said, the joys of this in many ways is that it's quick, it's easy, it's quite simplistic. You've got that kind of quirky, nice design of a teepee, but with actually a benefit of, rather than having a central pole, you've got this A-frame kind of style. So the benefit of that is that means you haven't got sort of a massive sort of, well, like a no-go area, something that's dividing the whole room up. Having one big open space means you can chuck in whatever you want in here. You have a centralised airbed and sort of bits and bobs either side. Now, like I said, with the kind of A-frame kind of pole, sometimes you find it's easier to make it in or outside. Doesn't really make too much difference. Inherently, sometimes there can be a bit of a problem when they're sort of popping out. Admittedly, this one hasn't got anything like a frame, like a butterfly clip to keep it in place. So really, it's just got to hold it in place as you basically put it inside the tent itself. Now, in the very kind of roof of the tent, I'll just get that pole in for a second, there is a little point where it goes into. So, let me get it here. So you want to locate that, and there's a little kind of webbing strap with its own kind of little Velcro tab. So you can push that into the top, almost feed that around the top of the A-frame. That can actually Velcro itself back to itself in many ways. It's always, like I said, without that button clip, sometimes you can find that pops out a little bit easier, but we can just happily insert that back in. We'll bring these in. Now, you've got adjusters on kind of the legs itself. So what you can almost do is kind of initially put it in like so, and then adjust it up. So we'll get the A-frame in position, just so it's kind of almost slightly puckered down in many ways. And once it's kind of in place, there are some internal kind of ties located here. So what we're going to do is just very loosely tie it onto it. That way the A-frame pole will stay in position. Initially, I think one each side would be more than happily enough. And then from there, what we can then do is extend that out fully, make sure that's getting really nice and taut. Do it one side and do it the other. And you can probably see externally now how much that difference that makes to the actual roof fabric itself. Once you've kind of done that, it's just a couple of extra ties really just to kind of keep that fabric nice and tight to the A-frame itself. And basically then the bulk part is up. You've got this kind of witch's hat in many ways as well. So you can either just hover that down. It will kind of sort of sway around. It's designed to do that necessarily with the wind. And one thing I would do before you come to actually guy out properly is we'll make sure that front door shuts. We don't kind of over tension it in it. So, and just do the zip along the bottom. So now that door completely shut, we can actually peg it out and get it looking a bit sharper. But as you can see, quite a simplistic design, which in its many ways is also a big benefit as well as almost a con. You've got not a bad internal height. I mean, I'm about 6'2". I can just about stand up right in the heart of it. But really it's more designed for sort of, you know, chucking a few air beds around it, putting it kind of as and where you want it to be. But as we can see, the whole thing can be pitched by one person more than happily on their own. And it's quite a nice little design. So yeah, that's kind of our little pitching video on the Bolide. If you want to check more information, you can check in the link below. And we'll come up to the packing video next. So let's see what Alpha has to do. So now we're packing away a tent. We'll firstly start with basically almost exactly opposite we just a minute ago, really. So we'll just undo the guide points, then take kind of the A-frame down. To be fair, if it's kind of windy day like it's today, you can do it in either or. I might, to be fair, just to make sure it's all kind of a bit more safer, is we'll sort of leave the guide rails in place, take the pole out initially. So first thing we'll do is kind of untie it on the inside that we've done or tied originally. This is one of those things that you want to make sure you don't do kind of too much of, because then you find you really struggle to untie them. If you can always give it a little bit of a wiggle when it comes out. So we undo the clamps, bring that pole back down a bit more. So again, just takes the slack off the fabric a little bit more there, and then just drop the pole down by section for a section, and then unvelcro it from the top, and then we can come out, disassemble it like so, and then we'll put that back into the pole bag nice and neatly. And again, like we said, because it's kind of quite a nice simplistic design, you haven't got to kind of worry about it too much. Goes back in the bag normally quite nice and neatly. So pull back. There we go. And what I'll do now is I'll use that pole bag to weigh down the rest of it. So we'll do the guide points out, take those off. And probably what I'll do at the same time actually is just unpeg the kind of the non-boxed kind of version of it. So now if the wind's coming from a certain direction, you can be quite cunning and kind of just sort of stop that point coming from that direction as well. So for example, leave the peg inside where the wind's coming. That way I haven't got to run around head like headless chicken trying to hold it down. Wind's coming directly from this way for this time. So what we'll do is kind of take the back out. And again, what you can always do sometimes if need be is almost turn the tent around completely. That way the wind's not blowing directly into the front of the tent and sort of inflating it. We can just sort of keep it nice and neatly, you know, making sure the air is sort of going out of it rather than directly back in. We fold the corners over. What I like to use sometimes is almost like the poles as a bit more of a guide. So you can kind of, again, use it as a bit of a weight, work out how wide it needs to be. And just give it a little bit of a press down with each fold. Ideally what I want to be kind of doing is folding almost into the middle in many ways. Just so we kind of know that when we can roll it from this end to that end, we're rolling out directly out of the front door. As you see, because air can quite easily get trapped in there. Once we're in this scenario, we'll get that little tie ready just underneath, and then we can roll directly from the sealed end towards the front door. This kind of rolling part you can do over and over again if you really want to. There's no kind of big drama about that, but it's just making sure that all of the air gets out and kind of stays out. And then we're perfectly in place with our little tie. And in the bag should, he says, fit directly in. Job's a good one. Yeah, that's kind of a bit of an idea how you guys pack it away and also how pitching it. Like I said, for more information, check the link below. We'll talk through kind of the review video we've got on the product as well as all the up-to-date prices. But yeah, that's kind of the little Easy Camp Bolide 400.